changing your life one story at a time. This is the Chicken Soup for the Soul podcast with Editor-in-Chief Amy Newmark.
Hey, it's Amy Newmark with your Chicken Soup for the Soul. I want to share a couple of stories with you today from our holiday book, The Spirit of Christmas. We are in full holiday mode now, but maybe you're still looking for that holiday spirit. For me, I have to say that the most important part of that spirit is the joy of giving. That's what seems to get me excited the most and gets most people excited. So we're going to talk about that today, starting with a story by Barbara Davy, who found one holiday season that she just wasn't feeling it. It was a week before Christmas, and she felt like a total Grinch, even though she was surrounded by all the fun stuff, the music, the singing, the decorations, the shopping, the food, all that cheeriness. And she lived in a small town where, in theory, the holiday spirit should have been even stronger, that small town sense of community. But nothing was working for her. And she'd had a conversation earlier that day with her niece about buying gifts for her niece's 3 children, and all her niece suggested was gift cards. And then she said she'd go pick up the gift cards for Barbara at the supermarket, so Barbara wouldn't even have to go and get them. She could just Venmo her the money. Well, that might sound good, but isn't there some joy involved in actually getting the gifts and putting some effort into them and thinking about how they'll be appreciated? And that made Barbara think about the old days, like the time she had made this huge effort to find a specific perfume for her grandmother. It was one that her grandmother hadn't been able to find anywhere, and Barbara found it. And she says, recalling that moment rekindled something in my heart, perhaps a flicker of Christmas spirit. How could I recreate those memories? And then she thought about her elderly neighbor who had no family nearby. Maybe she would feel better if she did something for that neighbor. So she went home and she called that neighbor and they chatted for half an hour, which was really fun for her neighbor who was lonely. And then Barbara felt much better because she had given of herself. And her neighbor Shirley had mentioned on the call that there was a special kind of cookie that her family had loved. And she had told Barbara that she didn't think anyone made these cookies anymore. Well, this gave Barbara a mission. It was only a week before Christmas, so she hit the internet and she found those cookies at a country store in New England. And then she paid for rush shipping. And when the cookies arrived, she wrapped them up and she took them to her neighbor's house. And finally, she felt it, the joy of giving, of doing something for someone. It had reignited the holiday spirit in her, and she was ready for the holidays. Mary Portson also shares a story with us from our new Spirit of Christmas book. She was spending her first Christmas with her new husband, Nick. They had both been widowed, and they were in their 60s when they got married, and they were grateful to have this second chance at love. And now they wanted to share their joy. So when they saw one of those giving trees at church, they knew that they had to buy gifts for some of the children whose names were on those tags on the branches. And Mary says this in her story. Having grown up the 7th of 10 children and then raised my own 8, I knew the struggle of raising a family on a low income. I'd discovered many creative ways I could contribute to our family, running home businesses, shopping year-round for gift items at thrift stores and clearance shelves, and using coupons. I'd eventually gotten a good job and also made money through public speaking and workshops centered on the topics of the 7 books I had published. But I knew exactly how those parents felt, the ones who couldn't provide the magical Christmases they wanted for their kids without a little help. Her husband was excited about it too, and they chose a few tags from the tree. But her husband was concerned when one of the kids was only asking for socks for Christmas. Mary explained to him that it was the mother who had filled out the form, and a lump started forming in her throat because she knew exactly how that mother felt. Her husband had no idea, and when she started getting teary, she said she would explain it to him when they were alone. After the service, she told him, I was that mother. I know what it's like to be unable to buy new socks or underwear for my children. No matter how creative I got at obtaining toys, necessities like coats, socks, and underwear were harder to come by. She told him about the year she had no winter coat for her 4-year-old, but she didn't tell anyone. But then her sister noticed that the little boy didn't go outside with the other kids to play, and she quietly provided a coat the next time that she saw the family. So that was when Nick announced what they were going to do. They would choose all the tags on the tree that asked for practical things like socks and underwear instead of toys. And then they would buy all those practical things, and then they would add in some toys. Nick was a successful businessman, and he'd always been able to provide his children with everything they needed and wanted and more. Mary had never experienced that kind of financial freedom until she married him. She says, Nick really did understand. It dawned on me then. Sometimes the best gift isn't found under a tree at all. The real gift in our first Christmas together was sitting right next to me, Nick, with his compassionate heart. I'm Amy Newmark. If you want to learn more about Chicken Soup for the Soul, the Spirit of Christmas, you could check it out on our website, chickensoup.com, and you can find it at lots of big box stores. Very happy that Sam's Club is carrying it. They're new to our team this year. Also Walmart, Kroger, BJ's, Fred Meyer, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Chapters Indigo, Amazon, and lots of other booksellers. Now, as we've been doing for many years, we're continuing to use our Christmas books as fundraisers for Toys for Tots. So a part of our profit on each book goes to them so that they can help make Christmas a little more magical for families in need all across the U.S. And think about your own stories if you'd like to join our writing team. We are collecting stories for 6 different books right now, which means there are hundreds of opportunities for you to be published by us in one of our 2026 or 2027 books. I do hope you'll come back for our next episode. I'll be sharing a couple of stories about a different kind of holiday. One story about soldiers from opposing sides celebrating Christmas together at Guantanamo Bay, and one about a family that figured out how to combine Christmas and Hanukkah so that they could celebrate everything together.